This week's best MMA bets. We're talking UFC 296. I'm going to give you guys my lock of the week, my most confident picks on the card, favorite underdogs, prop/value bets, and then finish it out with the parlays. So make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, turn the post notifications on, and make sure to share the video as well. Last week, lock hit. Tim Elliott won by arm triangle submission in the first round. I'm happy as hell that Elliott got it done and got me back on track with the lock streak moving once again. I had a great thing going with 9 wins in a row, and then I fumbled for about 3 weeks. One of them a draw, but still a fumble nonetheless. And I'm heating up once again, and I feel like this week's lock is going to be pretty epic too. I feel like it makes a lot of sense, and it's in a weight class that I think I tend to do pretty damn well with the locks of the week. So without further ado, here it is.
Donning the stars and stripes of the United States of America.
Got him!
Fighting out of Machado, Russia, Tagir Ulanbekov.
Tagir Ulanbekov to win. I think he's beaten Cody Durden. I picked Tim Elliott last week. Ulanbekov, common opponent, right, of Tim Elliott, or rather recent opponent of Tim Elliott. He lost the fight against the veteran savvy Elliott. But look how damn good Tim Elliott just did against Sumaderji last week. Now, I'm not trying to use MMA math here. Cody Durden is a pressure wrestler. Tagir Ulanbekov is a Dagestani wrestler who not only is good on the ground, right, but he's solid enough in the stand-up department. But what he brings to the table that Cody Durden does not is a submission threat. I think Tagir Ulanbekov is so live by sub, specifically the guillotine. Now, as far as the odds for this matchup, money line, it's -170. Slight favorite here. Moderate-ish favorite here, Ulanbekov. Submission is +300. I see him snatching the neck. Dig into Cody Durden. I think he's susceptible to guillotine chokes. Jake Hadley had him in a tight one at the end of the first round in his last bout. And Jake Hadley is nowhere near the grappling level of his opposition here in Tagir Ulanbekov. I feel like Ulanbekov was a super sensible lock to me. It's not the juicy plus money underdog tag, but ultimately it's about hitting it and getting the lock streak moving again. Coming off a win with Tim Elliott at flyweight last week, I feel like it makes perfect sense to go Tagir Ulanbekov over Cody Durden here. I think at the very least, I'm the king of the lower weight classes with these locks, and I feel like we're going to be cruising nicely here with Ulanbekov locking up a neck of Cody Durden. I'd be shocked, and I think most of you would be too, if Durden's out-wrestling Tagir Ulanbekov for 3 rounds. I don't see that happening. I think Ulanbekov can even get on top, out-wrestle Durden, but he might not have to because that neck might get snatched early in the fight. Submission win, Tagir Ulanbekov, this week's lock. Let's talk about the most confident picks on the card. We'll put them up on screen. I'm going to go slate by slate, talk about each one of them, but I'll quickly breeze through the lineup. We have Randy Brown, Dustin Jacoby, Ian Garry, and Shavkat Rakhmonov. Let's first talk Randy Brown, who fights in the main card opener, or excuse me, the fight card opener, right? It's actually really weird to see Randy Brown opening a prelim. That's because this card is deep. And he's taking on Muslim Salikov, who is a quality striker. Good kickboxing game. The king of Kung Fu. Got into the game late, though. He's 39 now. Randy Brown is 8 inches longer with the arms. He's got a clear speed and boxing advantage. And I think Salikov has shown some signs of slowing down. He's coming off a loss to Nicholas Dalby, which is not a terrible loss. Dalby is pretty good. Just got a nice win over up-and-coming prospect Gabriel Bonfim. But here, Randy Brown, I think, is going to be able to style on Salikov. Touch him up from distance. I think Salikov might try and engage the wrestling, but I don't see him taking Randy Brown down could see Brown hurting Salikov with straight punches. Minus 260, so it's a wide money line, but I am confident that he's going to win. Over 1.5 is minus 265. I believe we're going over. Decision is plus 130, and that will be the official method of victory call, but there's not a ton of juice on that side. Brown, plus 525 by knockout, would be more exciting as a prop bet. Salikov was knocked out by Leach a couple fights back. And I feel like Randy Brown does have enough boxing skill where he could sting, hurt, and end up knocking out the older Salikov here. So I felt like it was at the very least worth mentioning that knockout. It's not impossible for Brown to get it done inside of the distance. But if it is a knockout, I would say it's even later potentially. Because Brown, let's be fair, he's not a one-punch knockout artist. It's more of a volume. It's more accumulation. And that's why my official prediction is Brown by decision. That right there is more, chasing plus money on a prop bet. Next up, we got Dustin Jacoby, who's fighting Alonzo Menifield. Love this fight for Dustin here. Minus 300, yes, wide favorite. I understand. But I got to tell you guys, you look at the last out for Dustin Jacoby. He knocked out Kennedy Nzechukwu, who was surging up the weight class. I feel like Alonzo Menifield, aside from his athleticism and explosiveness, does not have near the technical abilities of Jacoby. Jacoby's a former glory kickboxer. He has knockout power, but he also knows how to outpoint fighters. I see Menifield getting a bit wild and reckless and walking into a big shot. Good counter strike by Jacoby should get him a knockout. Big favorite, I know. So this is a parlay piece more than anything. Money line's wide at minus 300. KO is plus 185. I feel like Menifield is definitely live to be knocked out in this fight. I'm going Jacoby. I'm going knockout win. I don't see Menifield having the striking technique to knock out a Dustin Jacoby. I mean, arguably, Jacoby could have got that decision with Khalil Roundtree, who just destroyed Anthony Smith and seems to be surging up the light heavyweight ranks. And looking at win for Jacoby by decision, I also want to look at plus 165. I think both methods of victory are possible, but officially I'm calling knockout. We're going Dustin Jacoby to get it done by a KO over Alonzo Menifield, and that's a high confidence pick on this card. Next one, it's Ian Garry. Listen, the money line on Garry is wide, minus 365 I'm looking at. But I also think we go over a round and a half. Minus 200 over a round and a half. Is Garry going to sleep Luque in one round? I do think he's getting the KO. My official prediction is Garry to get a knockout, plus 165. But he could definitely win a decision. Over 1.5, I actually think is a solid little play, potential parlay piece at that minus 200 range. But I really do believe it can hit. Shavkat Rakhmonov is up next. I'm actually already jumping at the bit to talk about that one. I'm looking at it and I'm getting excited. Even though the line's not great, I think I'm sniping out something that's plus money that's worth hitting. I feel like Ian Garry has a real potential to knock Luque out. I'm damn excited for Ian Garry at the press conference tomorrow because he skipped media day today. Something to note, but he'll be at the press conference from what I'm hearing tomorrow, and I'm excited to hear from him. Ian Garry will beat Vicente Luque. Too many miles on the car for Luque. Ian Garry unbeaten, surging, and I think victorious here against an OG vet in Vicente Luque, who has trained with Ian Garry before, and word on the street is that he submitted Ian Garry in training. A sub for Luque is plus 750, just something interesting to note. Let's talk Shavkat. I know the money line is wide, minus 660. Come on. Minus 660. Yeah, I get it. Not the play money line. But I looked at something that I think is valuable. Sub is plus 120. I have a good feeling that he is going to submit Wonderboy. Shavkat Rakhmonov has a pressure style and he is willing to exchange strikes, but let's not forget he's very competent on the floor, has submission wins in the past. I know Wonderboy's never been submitted, but he also hasn't fought Shavkat Rakhmonov at nearly 41 years of age. From the longer range, Wonderboy is immaculate on the feet. But nonetheless, Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to be in his face. Closing the gap on Wonderboy, smothering him is a perfect strategy, and that's Shavkat Rakhmonov's whole game. I think submission plus 120 makes a lot of sense. Shavkat, yes, the money line is hideous here, but he's still a high confidence pick. And with the most confident pick section, it's not all about the odds. It's all about the confidence. And here with Shavkat, I'm feeling highly confident. Now, you might be saying, why didn't you put Paddy Pimblett in your lineup? I'll be honest with you, I was hesitant to throw him in here throughout the whole week, and I sat through Tony Ferguson's media day, and something about Tony Ferguson's media day that I wanted to mention in this video is the fact that he said he is fully dialed into fighting now. He mentioned how he wanted to get his doctorates, and before he was focusing also on school, but he realized he had to put his all into fighting to be successful once again. A dangerous Tony Ferguson completed Hell Week with David Goggins. The odds are very wide, right? Favoring Paddy Pimblett. Ferguson's a big dog. I just felt as though Paddy the Baddy has too many technical flaws to his game. The head movement, or rather lack thereof. The chin being up high as he closes the gap. And he's not this tremendous wrestler. Now, he's fighting a weathered Tony Ferguson that's taken a ton of damage, but something does seem very different about Tony Ferguson this week at Media Day as opposed to his fight against Bobby Green and fights before that. I feel as though we have, I don't know, a more dialed in, a more sane and grounded version of Tony Ferguson. Going through Hell Week with David Goggins, let's see if it pays off. Goggins is going to be in the fucking corner. I love it. I love it. And I had to mention that. So T-Ferg looking good at the media day, or rather sounding good, reassured me to leave Paddy Pimblett out of the most confident picks. Tony Ferguson, we'll talk about some D-Gen props when we get to the prop section that it might include him. But let's jump to the favorite underdog section. If you guys haven't, smash the likes. If you're new, subscribe. I'm going to go one by one with the underdogs here. I have 3 of them on this card. The first is Shamil Gaziev, who is a plus 115 underdog against Martin Budai, who I honestly think is pretty beatable for Gaziev. I feel like submission win at plus 800 for Gaziev is fairly live here. Like plus 800 seemed crazy wide for sub. I've predicted that I could see Gaziev mounting Budai and ground and pounding him. But I could also see him getting Budai down, landing ground and pound, and then Budai giving up his back. Now, it's also not impossible for Gaziev to connect with big punches on the feet. He showed power in his Contender Series fight. He made a little fumble, and I know a lot of people have doubts about his cardiovascular system, but I think he's going to prove those doubters wrong here on Saturday, and he's a very valuable dog at plus 115, so I do like the chances for Gaziev to end up getting the win. The knockout prop, not nearly as juicy as the sub at plus 275, something that I wanted to just quickly mention. But plus 800 by sub, Gaziev for the win, guys. He's a good underdog. Next one, Ariane Lipski at plus 165. Now, it's a women's fight, and there is some relative concerns because how much has Casey O'Neal's wrestling offense improved? If she is successful in takedowns in this fight, she is on a path to win because Lipski has shown vulnerability on the ground. Granted, last time out, she was able to edge out Melissa Gatto, who's a very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. And nonetheless, I would say if you're looking at striking, Lipski is clearly better than Casey O'Neal. Now, moneyline Lipski, plus 165. The only thing really worth mentioning here about this fight, I don't want to tell you, yeah, she's going to knock her out because the odds of that are not super high. Lipski by knockout sits at plus 700. Lipski by decision sitting at only plus 250. I'm officially calling a decision win for Lipski. The money line would be better. When you look at the striking technique of both, it definitely favors Lipski, but ultimately everything will be determined by can she stop the takedown. I don't see Casey O'Neal as this beast wrestler. She's not Erin Blanchfieldov, but she is competent in the grappling when we've seen Lipski struggle in the past on the ground. So I'm excited to see how this thing unfolds. Has Lipski closed that gap a bit? Enough so to fend off the takedowns of Casey O'Neal and outstrike her. I'm going to say that she does at plus 165. I got underdog Lipski in this fight. Next one. Boom. Brian Kelleher, plus 165. And I know I've gotten some flack by some, but I know there's some of you out there who see Brian Kelleher as live to win because they're also feeling the decline of Cody Garbrandt has been evident. Last time out, he beat Trevin Jones. And beating Trevin Jones in the fashion that he did, I wasn't overly impressed. He looked gun shy. Yes, he outpointed him and won a decision. He was technical, sure. But he was worried about getting hit. Brian Kelleher, in my opinion, more dangerous than Trevin Jones. I think would have trickier jiu-jitsu on the mat than Trevin Jones. And when you dig into Brian Kelleher's losses, like he's taken on good opposition. Let me pull this up real quick. I got to bring up the Tapology, okay? Brian Kelleher, I'm going to read off his recent losses. Mario Batista, who's a beast of a wrestler, was able to submit him in the first round in 2022. Umar Nurmagomedov, who is, just a beast, period, was able to submit him also in 2022. Now, his wins in the UFC are not great, and I'm not saying he's Mr. Knockout Power, but I question Garbrandt's chin substantially. Lost to Ricky Simone in 2021. Lost to Cody Stamann in 2020. All of which, guys, are more so wrestlers. Now, I know Cody Garbrandt has a wrestling base, but he is a striker nonetheless. Montel Jackson submitted him. Another guy, wrestling-based guy. Knockout loss in 2018 to the terrifying John Lineker, but it took him 3 rounds to do it. And then a loss by submission to Marlon Chito Vera. And let's not forget, Brian Kelleher has a win over Renan Barao. He's beaten a former UFC bantamweight champion once before. I believe he's getting another. And this time, I think he's knocking out Cody No Love. I'm going Kelleher for the win. I think he can do it here. Knockout for Kelleher sits at plus 400. I feel as though it's possible. Money line plus 165. I don't believe in No Love anymore. He doesn't look the same to me. And I think that here on Saturday, Brian Kelleher is going to pull off a big upset against the former world champion. Kelleher to cap off the favorite underdog section. Let's jump to the props/value bets. Let's talk a little prop action here. Let me bring up the odds on screen and we can discuss some of the prop betting, okay? So these are obviously fights that I didn't mention in the most confident picks, favorite dogs, or the lock section. Pantoja by sub. My official prediction, plus 155, pretty likely. Now, where things get interesting is if you were to play Pantoja by submission in round 2, it's plus 800. In round 3, it's plus 1200. Round 1 would be plus 550. It'd be crazy if you sub in the first, but I'm seeing it in the second or third. I think third is quite live. Plus 1200 is there. Now, if you're already touching that, you're probably like, dude, why don't I throw in fourth at plus 1300? I feel like Pantoja, when he gets a hold of Royval and controls the chaos, he will find another submission as he did in their first fight. Took him a bit of time, might take him a little bit more time here, but I do think he's going to end up getting the win. I also think this fight does end inside of the distance. The odds for ending inside of the distance for this fight, we're looking at minus 550. This fight, flyweight fight, it's not expected to go long. It's expected to go under 2.5 rounds, which for flyweight, that's epic. And that's because Royval fights like a fucking bat out of hell. He gets shot out of a cannon when he gets out there. Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I like the round props. I like the sub prop. This fight was one that stood out to me as far as pure side of the prop betting. Now, another one that I just wanted to briefly mention, Irene Aldana does have knockout power, plus 475. She KO'd Ketlin Vieira. She's got other knockout wins in the UFC. She's a heavy-handed girl. Beat Macy Chiasson with a weird up kick to the body. I think she is live for a potential KO, looking to snap back after a loss to the female GOAT, greatest female fighter of all time, Amanda Nunes. I think she's live to knock out Rosa, but ultimately could go long too. Something worth mentioning, that right there is the prop/value bet section. I want to give you guys no fluff. I don't want to throw out stuff that I don't believe in at all. It's all the confidence. It's all things that I can see coming to fruition. And that's what I kept for this section right here. And before I cap it off, I have to look. What's the over sitting at here? Over 4.5, minus 170. Do think the title fight is probably going distance. I'm predicting it goes long. Let's jump to the next section, the fame section, the fan favorite section, the parlays. Let's parlay some things up. I have a parlay to drop quickly here. Let's see. Let's scroll down because for whatever reason, the lineup is not perfect with best fight odds, but it's okay. Shavkat Rakhmonov. Oh, he's minus 650. Fair. I know. I recognize he's minus 650, but I'm looking for a winner. Shavkat Rakhmonov, Dustin Jacoby makes a ton of sense to me. Adding in the over in the Garry fight, I do think it goes over 1.5, brings you to plus 135. And also throwing in Rude Boy, Randy Brown, who opens the card. I know he's a big favorite, but it still now brings you in the plus 200 range. You're looking at plus 220 for that. I like that a lot more. I like that 1,000 times more. I don't think that's a bad look at all. Now, if you throw a potential early underdog in, now we got to scroll up for him. Shamil Gaziev, now I got plus 607. Rakhmonov, Jacoby, over 1.5 in the Garry fight. Randy Brown, Gaziev. That's a nice 5-piece parlay that brings you in the plus 600 range, which I'd say is pretty damn good here. And I do think it's got a real chance of hitting. Strong chance of hitting. Now, if we did really fucking throw savagery out there and you throw like an over in this fight, be sweaty though, because now I got to have the over on the fucking title fight. But plus 960. And then Ulanbekov, who's the lock, plus 616. You don't want this over. I'll actually remove it. Plus 1,000 for Ulanbekov, Gaziev, Brown, over 1.5 in the Garry fight, Jacoby and Rakhmonov. Now, if you're like, listen, I'm not relying on a fat heavyweight for my parlay to hit, totally understandable. Plus 420. So you are going to lose the steam a bit, but plus 420, blessed number. If you guys know the culture of the channel, you like a plus 420 tag. And I think it's got a real chance of hitting. I'm looking to bring some heat with the parlay section. This one right here, I'm going to leave up right here for a second. You can screenshot it. You can write it down. Plus 420. I think that this might be destiny calling. This is a parlay that I love here. Now, I don't really love parlaying up the other underdogs nearly as much. It would be more of us chasing degenerate plus money if we're going to do all that, which, we will just for the fun of it. But I don't really, recommend it with the highest level of confidence. Like if you added in Kelleher plus 2,920, now it gets big. But what if you had a sure winner at plus 1,000, just having one underdog with Gaziev? Irene Aldana should also win plus 1,662. If you had Alexandre Pantoja in your lineup as well, now you got plus 2,590. We're getting lower and lower in the likelihood, but still, I'm going to mention it. And then the over in the Bryce Mitchell-Josh Emmett fight, you got plus 4,020, another lucky number, so it's worth mentioning here. Looking at the lineup, so over 2.5 in the Mitchell-Emmett fight, over 1.5 in the Garry fight. Shavkat, Jacoby, Brown, Ulanbekov, Gaziev, Aldana, Pantoja. That right there, I'd say, is a pretty successful parlay section. Guys, UFC 296 is bringing the heat, as am I, because I'm dropping content every day per usual. Let me know what you thought of the picks in the comments down below. I'm really sad that this is the final This Week's Best MMA Bet show of 2023. I hate that we have 4 weeks off from the UFC, but nonetheless, if you've been riding with me through this show, keep your eyes peeled on the channel. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure to turn the post notifications on and don't just leave them on personalized. Put them on all so you don't miss a video throughout that off week. What I'll be dropping is news reactions, opinion videos, and I'll be doing live streams galore. And I still got Moneyline Mondays where me and Finch are going to chop it up, and who knows where the topics are going to go, but ultimately still content on the channel. Join me for the Fight Companion Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Looking forward to it. Thank you guys all for watching. If you have nothing to say in the comments, but you just enjoy the content, as always, drop a W in the chat to boost the algorithm for your boy. Much love, my people, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.